Deep within the sacred walls of the Vatican, from archives filled with forbidden knowledge to the death certificate of Jesus, join us as we unearth 15 of the creepiest things that have been hidden for centuries in the heart of the Vatican. Number 1. The Vatican Necropolis. The necropolis is in the Vatican, hidden beneath what is arguably the most famous basilica in the world. There is an authentic city of the dead. This macabre necropolis is located just below St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City. On the surface, there is a world wonder, a structure filled with beautiful works of art, fascinating frescoes, and hundreds of years of history. But, 5 floors below, hidden in the darkness underground, is a ruin that dates back to the original founding of the Roman Empire. The altar of St. Peter is at the pinnacle of all history. The altar is stacked on top of 2,000 years of bones, with the bodies of the dead hidden beneath. Many of the bodies buried beneath the basilica are not even Christians. The oldest cemetery dates back to the 1st century AD and was used by pagans. And on top of that, there is another level of burials from the 5th century. This one is a little more interesting because it is a mix of pagan and Christian, a mausoleum from a time when the pagans of Europe were slowly converting to Catholicism. These 2 levels alone represent approximately 90% of the time the Roman Empire was in power, between 27 BC and 476 AD. Although St. Peter's Basilica is what everyone knows and what the hill is famous for, it was a sacred place for a long time. Number 2. The death of Pope John Paul I. In September 1978, Pope John Paul I died suddenly and without warning. His death occurred just 33 days after being elected to the Holy See position. What was unusual at this time was that conflicting reports emerged about the circumstances of his unexpected death. Apparently, there were anomalies on his death certificate, and to this day, no one is completely sure what happened to one of the shortest-lived popes in the history of the Church. What we do have are many conspiracy theories, any of which could be real. The only problem is that we don't have enough evidence to say which one is correct. There is a theory about the Vatican Bank and those who were in charge of it. In particular, the Vatican was wildly corrupt and worried that Pope John Paul was going to bring down the hammer first. Supposedly, they murdered him to keep his finances safe. Corruption is real and documented. We know that the director of the Vatican Institute for Works of Religion, one of the most powerful financial institutions in the world, was up to his neck in corruption. His name was Bishop Marcinkus, and he was accused in 1982 of being complicit in the collapse of Banco Ambrosiano and losing approximately $3.5 billion. We also know that one of the bishop's accomplices was a man named Roberto Calvi, who was a member of the illegal Italian Masonic Lodge. He was found dead in London in 1982, just weeks before his corruption became public. His death was declared self-inflicted, but there are also many conspiracy theories about it. The moral here is that, looking at the death of the Pope from an external angle, it really seems that the Pope was killed to protect the bank, but in the end, the scandal was too big to hide. Number 3. The Vatican Obelisk. Located in the very center of St. Peter's Square in Vatican City, is an ancient monument called the Vatican Obelisk. Most people couldn't tell you what it is, but almost everyone would recognize it if they saw a picture of it. It's the massive pillar right in the center of the plaza that looks like a giant Egyptian obelisk from thousands of years ago. This monument is thousands of years old and is actually Egyptian. The obelisk was stolen from the Egyptian city of Heliopolis during the brutal reign of one of the most infamous Roman emperors in history, Caligula. But the story behind the obelisk is even more sinister than that. After the Romans built a ship specially designed to transport the obelisk from Egypt to Rome, it was used for the execution of Christians. The pillar was in the Circus of Gallus and Nero during the time when St. Peter was crucified. The Romans took Christians to the base of that same structure and then brutally executed them. After the circus was abandoned, Vatican Hill became a necropolis and, in the Middle Ages, the obelisk still stood in the same place with the blood of Christians around its base. It was only in 1586 that the monument was finally moved to its original position and placed in the center of the square. Number 4. Lost Predictions of Nostradamus. The Lost Predictions of Nostradamus. The strange 16th-century French seer has indelibly etched his name into history with his cryptic quatrains and prophetic verses. The subject of scrutiny, interpretation, and debate for centuries, a lost manuscript of Nostradamus is rumored to exist in the Vatican. This document contains shocking and detailed predictions about important events in church history. These prophecies are believed to be more explicit and potentially dangerous in the wrong hands. Although the Vatican has never officially confirmed its possession of this manuscript, several curious events have generated speculation. In the 19th century, references to a secret document were discovered in the diary of a 10th-century cardinal. The diary revealed the cardinal's discomfort reading the seer's forbidden quatrains. Another tantalizing clue emerged from a church deserter in the early 20th century, who spoke quietly of a forbidden library hidden in the Vatican. This place supposedly housed heretical texts and controversial documents. Among them was said to be the lost manuscript of Nostradamus, profusely annotated and examined by a select few. Many believers in prophecies maintain that Nostradamus's ability to foresee the future would make it in the Church's interest to keep such predictions under lock and key, allowing the Church to retain control over potentially destabilizing information. Number 5. Black Magic Grimoire. The Grimoire of Black Magic is exactly what it sounds like, an ancient book of black magic dating from 1421 to 1521. However, no historian has agreed on when the first edition was published. Expert Owen Davis says that it was in 1702 that the first edition was made available, but other more conventional scholars suggest that it was written in the 19th century as some kind of hoax. All we know is that the Black Magic Grimoire, also known as the Great Grimoire, is vague at best. Introductory: it was probably written by a man named Antonio Benitez Ana de Rubino, and he derived much of his information from the original writings of King Solomon. Many of the black magic spells in the book are variations of the Key of Solomon or the Red Dragon. So what does a black magic book have to do with the Vatican? The original copy is rumored to be stored somewhere in the archives. We don't know if any of this is true, but it's what some sources say, and considering that the Vatican archives house almost all of the world's relevant religious texts, it wouldn't be a big surprise. It makes sense that they would keep a secret a book that can supposedly summon Lucifer and give one the ability to make a deal with the devil. Number 6. Jesus' Death Certificate. The Shroud of Turin is a small piece of linen cloth that appears to show the imprint of Jesus' face, like a negative on a roll of film. Religious scholars believe that the shroud wrapped around Christ's body after his death, which is why his face was imprinted on it. The shroud is first mentioned in 1354 and quickly became one of the most legendary religious artifacts in the world. It has been kept inside the Royal Chapel of Turin Cathedral in northern Italy since 1578. However, it is quite controversial, as tests in 1988 showed that it came from the Middle Ages, some 1,200 years after the recorded death of Christ. Recently, Barbara Frail, a researcher in the Vatican's secret archives, claims that traces of writing were found on the shroud, making it a kind of death certificate. According to Barbara, the word fragments discovered on the shroud were written in Greek, Hebrew, and Latin, saying something like this shroud was placed on Jesus of Nazareth. This information comes directly from someone who works at the Vatican. Number 7. The Pope's Escape Tunnels. The Passetto di Borgo looks like any other ancient stone fortification in Vatican City. Travel 792 meters from the city to Castel Sant'Angelo, used by popes to escape danger. Built at the behest of Pope Nicholas III from 850 AD, but not completed until approximately 650 years later, during the reign of Pope Alexander VI in 1492. It was used by Pope Alexander VI in 1527 when he had to escape the mutinous troops of the army of the Holy Roman Emperor. In 2000, as a way to honor the Great Jubilee of the Roman Catholic Church, the Passetto was renovated and opened to visitors for a limited time each summer. Number 8. Lucifer. Some conspiracy theories suggest that in the bowels of the Vatican there is evidence of the existence of Lucifer. Those who support these theories also believe that the Vatican holds evidence of the existence of extraterrestrials. Another conspiracy speculation claims that the entire Catholic Church, Vatican City, and the Pope are under the control of Lucifer, considering them his puppets. However, it is important to note that these claims lack evidence and are considered mere speculation. The only church known to have a representation of a demon is the Church of the Holy Trinity in Barry-Leven, Westminster, United Kingdom, where there is a statue of Lucifer created by local artist Paul Fryer. This statue, made of wax with real feather wings, is an artistic creation and not proof of Lucifer's influence over the Vatican. Number 9. The Resurrection. The sculpture The Resurrection, modeled in 1977 by the artist Pericle Fazzini, is located inside the Vatican, specifically in the Paul VI Audience Hall. Approximately 20 meters long and 7 meters high, the sculpture is considered disturbing by many due to its peculiar appearance. Although it is intended to represent the resurrection of Christ, some observers describe it as a bunch of melted snakes with a demon emerging from a black sticky substance. Despite the controversy surrounding this sculpture, it stands out in the hall where the Pope holds his weekly meetings, reminding the Christian audience that they should not fear what will come when Jesus Christ is resurrected, and should rejoice even in the midst of chaos and death. Thank you for joining us, and until next time.